It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when the door to a quiet, old-fashioned diner creaked open. The bell above chimed softly as an elderly man in a crisp suit stepped inside, his silver hair neatly combed, his eyes sharp but kind. No one paid much attention, just another customer, perhaps a businessman passing through. But the waitress behind the counter froze for a split second. There was something familiar about him. She couldn't place it at first. He looked different, older, wealthier, someone who now clearly lived a life far removed from the world of late-night shifts and minimum wage tips. But he remembered her. Years ago, when he was just a struggling young man, broke and desperate, it was this very diner, and this same waitress, who had shown him a rare act of kindness. He had walked in with little more than the clothes on his back and a worn-out wallet. She had noticed. Instead of turning him away or treating him like a burden, she brought him a hot meal, paid for it out of her own pocket, and handed him $10, all she had on her that day. She never expected anything in return. To her, it was just a small gesture. But to him, it had meant everything. Now, decades later, he wasn't just another customer. He was one of the wealthiest men in the country, a billionaire with power, influence, and the means to change lives. But none of the fortune he'd earned had erased the memory of that one selfless moment. He had been searching for her ever since he gained success, holding on to the hope that one day he might thank her properly. And now, here she was, a little older, still with that same gentle smile, moving from table to table, unaware of who had just walked through the door. He took a seat at the corner booth, watching her as she poured coffee for a couple at the next table. His heart pounded, not from nerves, but from a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. A deep, genuine emotion that money could never buy. This wasn't going to be just another business transaction or donation. This was personal. It was his turn to do something unexpected. What would he say to her? Would she even remember him? And more importantly, how would he repay a debt that money alone couldn't settle? Stay tuned, because what happens next will change both of their lives forever. He sat there quietly, watching her move through the diner with the ease of someone who had done this for years. Her name tag read Linda, a name he hadn't forgotten. She looked tired, maybe a little worn by time, but there was still something warm about her presence. She greeted every customer with patience, even the rude ones. She wiped down the counters herself, poured coffee with a steady hand, and managed a quick smile in between. She hadn't changed much, and yet, life had clearly gone on without any shortcuts or luxury. He couldn't help but think back to that day. It had been a freezing winter morning. He had no job, no family nearby, and no idea what his next move would be. He had wandered into this diner with just enough hope to ask for a glass of water. Linda had looked at him, really looked, the way few people ever did. She had seen someone trying to hold it together. Instead of brushing him off, she had slipped him a hot plate of eggs and toast, quietly placing the $10 bill under the napkin. "Take care of yourself," she had said with a soft smile, like it was the most natural thing in the world. That $10 hadn't changed his life overnight, but it had given him just enough to get to a job interview the next day, and then the next one. Years passed. He worked hard, took chances, made mistakes. Eventually he built a company, then another. The money came, slowly at first, then all at once. But through all of it, he never forgot that small moment in the diner. That one act of kindness had been his first reminder that not everyone had given up on him, even when he had nearly given up on himself. Now, sitting just a few feet away from her, he wondered if she had any idea how deeply she had impacted his life. Did she remember him at all? To her, maybe it was just a blur, one of many days, one of many faces. But for him, that memory had been carved into the foundation of everything he'd become. She finally noticed him sitting alone. "I'll be right with you," she said kindly, still unaware of who he was. He nodded, smiling softly. His heart was racing. He had imagined this moment so many times, but now that it was real, he wasn't sure what to say. How do you thank someone for changing the entire course of your life with $10 and a warm meal? But before he could speak, something unexpected happened, something that made him stop in his tracks. Just as he was about to speak, Linda was pulled away by a sudden commotion near the kitchen. One of the younger waiters had slipped on a wet floor, sending a tray of dishes crashing to the ground. She rushed over without hesitation, kneeling to help him up and check if he was okay. The other customers looked on with mild curiosity, but she was fully focused on the boy, her concern genuine and maternal. He noticed it right away, the same way she had once looked at him. He leaned back in the booth, watching her. This wasn't just a job for her. She cared. And maybe that was part of what had stuck with him all these years. Linda hadn't just been kind to him. Kindness was who she was. But that raised another question. If she was the kind of person who always helped others, how many more people had she lifted up? And why was she still here, all these years later, working double shifts in a rundown diner? The answer came, bit by bit, as he listened quietly. The young waiter, James, sat at a nearby table with an ice pack on his arm. He called Linda Ma, and the way she fussed over him made the relationship clear. Her son, a teenage boy, probably still in high school. That changed things. She wasn't just working to get by. She was working to raise a child on her own. He overheard snatches of conversation between her and another waitress. Rent was going up. Tips were down. Her car had broken down last week, and she hadn't had time to fix it. Yet through it all, Linda kept smiling. He felt a tightness in his chest. The guilt crept in quietly, unexpected. All these years he had been building wealth, traveling, investing, speaking at events, while the woman who gave him his first lifeline was still stuck in survival mode. He thought about stepping in right then, telling her everything, offering to change her life like she had once changed his. But something stopped him. It wasn't pride, it was fear. What if she didn't remember him? What if she saw his gesture as pity, or worse, a handout? And deep down, he didn't want to just give her money. He wanted to give her something meaningful, something that showed he had truly paid attention. Just then, a man in a dark jacket walked in and handed Linda a folded envelope. Her face fell as she read it. She said nothing, only tucked the letter under the counter and went back to work. But he saw it, the slight tremble in her hands, the way her eyes lost their light. Something was very wrong. And he had a feeling that whatever was in that envelope could change everything. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Linda kept working as if nothing had happened, but the change in her was obvious. Her smile had faded. Her steps were slower. Her hand lingered too long on the coffee pot, and she had to ask a customer to repeat their order, something she hadn't done once all afternoon. The billionaire, still sitting in his corner booth, knew that whatever was in that envelope had shaken her to her core. His instincts kicked in. Years of boardroom negotiations and high-stakes deals had trained him to read people, to sense pressure building before anyone else did. And right now, Linda was carrying the weight of something heavy, something urgent. He reached for his phone, ready to call his assistant and have someone investigate the envelope, but then he stopped. No, this wasn't a situation to be handled from behind a screen. This was personal. He needed to know for himself. Linda's son James had stepped outside and was pacing near the alley behind the diner, his face buried in his phone. He looked upset, his shoulders tense, jaw clenched. The billionaire slipped out of his booth and followed him, keeping a careful distance. When James finally paused, he pressed the phone to his ear and spoke in a hushed voice. "Mom just got the notice today. We've got 2 weeks. I don't know what we're gonna do." 2 weeks. The words hit him hard. It must have been an eviction notice. Maybe overdue rent or a foreclosure. Suddenly, it all made sense. The long shifts, the broken-down car, the constant worry behind Linda's eyes. She was fighting to keep a roof over their heads. He stepped back inside quietly, unnoticed, heart pounding. He could feel the pressure building, the urgency of the moment. This wasn't just about repaying a good deed anymore. This was about doing the right thing before it was too late, but he still hadn't spoken to her. She didn't know who he was. Would she even listen? The diner started to empty as the dinner crowd dwindled. Linda moved toward his table for the first time since he arrived. "Sorry for the wait," she said softly, reaching for her notepad. She didn't recognize him yet, or maybe she did and wasn't sure. He looked up at her, his voice calm but full of something deeper. "You once gave a man $10 and a meal when he had nothing. Do you remember that day?" She froze. Her eyes met his, and for a second, time seemed to stop. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Something flickered in her expression: confusion, recognition, disbelief. And then, just as she began to respond, the front door opened again. A figure stepped in, holding a second envelope. The door creaked open again, and a tall man in a grey coat stepped inside, holding a second envelope in his hand. He scanned the diner quickly and walked straight toward Linda. She hadn't even had the chance to respond to the billionaire's question. Her attention snapped to the man approaching her. Her eyes widened, and her shoulders stiffened, as if she already knew what was coming. "Miss Carter," the man asked. His voice was cold, professional, the kind of voice that delivered bad news often. "This is a final notice. I'm sorry, but there's nothing more we can do. You have 14 days. He placed the envelope gently on the counter and turned to leave, not waiting for a reply. Linda's hands shook as she picked it up. She opened it slowly, her face tightening with every line she read. Her breath caught in her throat. Her son had been right. It was an eviction notice. But it wasn't just for her apartment. "It's the diner," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The billionaire leaned forward. "What do you mean?" She looked up, eyes clouded with worry. "I own this place. My husband and I bought it years ago. After he passed, I tried to keep it going. But the debts, the property taxes, I've been fighting to keep it afloat. I thought I had more time." He stared at her in disbelief. She owned the diner. It wasn't just a job, it was her legacy. The same diner where she had helped him all those years ago. And now it was about to be taken from her. Everything changed in that moment. The stakes were higher than he'd realized. Linda wasn't just losing her home. She was losing the one thing she'd worked her whole life to protect, the place that had helped dozens of people over the years, maybe hundreds, just like it had helped him. Before we could say anything, James burst back into the diner, phone in hand. "Mom, I talked to the landlord again. They said a buyer's already lined up. Someone's offering cash to take over the building." Linda blinked in shock. "A buyer? Who?" James shrugged. "I don't know. They wouldn't say. Just that the offer came through fast, and they're finalizing next week." The billionaire's blood ran cold. Something wasn't right. Someone was trying to snatch the diner from under her, fast, quiet, and without giving her a chance to fight back. His mind raced. Who would want this place? Why the rush? And then his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant, just 2 words. ***, you won't believe who. ***, he stared at the message on his phone. ***, you won't believe who. His hands tightened around the device as a sinking feeling spread through his chest. Without saying a word, he stood and stepped outside, dialing his assistant immediately. "Tell me who made the offer," he said, his voice low but firm. There was a pause, then came the name. It hit him like a punch to the gut. It was his former business partner, the same man he had built his first company with, the same man who had once tried to cut him out when the money started rolling in. They hadn't spoken in years, not since a bitter legal split that left scars on both sides. And now that man was trying to buy the diner, not just to own the property, but to level it. Plans had already been drawn for a high-end apartment complex to replace it. A quiet buyout, a fast demolition. He hung up and walked back in, his face set. Linda and James looked up, confused. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Years ago, you helped me when no one else would. You gave me $10, a meal, and a bit of hope I didn't have. That small act changed my life. I'm the man you helped. And now /, I think someone is trying to take from you the way I once nearly lost everything. Linda stared at him, stunned. That was you asterisk. He nodded. I spent years searching for you. I never forgot, and I won't let this happen to you. Before she could respond, the door opened yet again, and in walked the man himself, his former partner, slick as ever, dressed in a tailored coat, a smirk playing on his lips. Small world, he said casually. Didn't expect to run into you asterisk here. The billionaire stepped forward. Call off the deal. The man laughed. Come on, it's just a rundown diner. It's business. No, he said firmly. This is family now. This is legacy. They stood there for a long moment, the air heavy with tension. Then, in a move no one expected, the billionaire pulled out a manila folder from his coat and laid it on the counter. I already bought the land. From the landlord. Full cash offer. 10 minutes ago. His former partner's smirk vanished. Linda's hand flew to her mouth in disbelief. It's yours, the billionaire said, turning to her. Free and clear. No debt. No eviction. Tears filled Linda's eyes. James grinned, overwhelmed. But just as relief began to settle in, the man in the grey coat who'd delivered the notice earlier re-entered quietly, tapping the billionaire on the shoulder. There's one more thing. You might want to see this asterisk. The billionaire turned, puzzled, as the man in the grey coat handed him a slim envelope, different from the others. This came through the courthouse this morning, the man said quietly. It's about the diner's ownership history. He opened it slowly, unsure of what to expect. As he read, his brow furrowed. Then his eyes widened. He looked up at Linda with a stunned expression. Did you know, he said, voice soft, that your husband never officially transferred the full deed to your name? Linda blinked. What? He handed her the document. It was still in both of your names. But after he passed, part of the property remained tied up in a probate process. The bank tried to claim it through a loophole, but they never finished the paperwork. That's why your old debts looked worse than they were. Legally, they had no real right to evict you. She looked down at the page, tears brimming again. This time, not from fear, but relief. Years of stress, bills, and exhaustion had come from a problem that should have never reached her in the first place. The billionaire exhaled. That's over now. I've cleared everything. And from today forward, the diner is 100% in your name. James looked between the two adults, speechless. So we get to stay. His mother pulled him into a hug. Yes, we get to stay. The billionaire smiled. For the first time in years, it wasn't about boardrooms or wealth or proving anything to anyone. It was about something real, about going full circle. The $10 that once gave him hope had led him right back here, giving someone else, the same someone, the second chance they deserved. As the former business partner stormed out, frustrated and outplayed, the diner grew quiet again. Just the soft hum of conversation and the scent of fresh coffee in the air. Linda turned to him, eyes full of gratitude. I never thought I'd see you again, she said, and I certainly never expected this. He laughed gently. Neither did I, but you changed my life. I never forgot, and I wasn't going to let you lose the place where you've helped so many others. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting a warm light through the diner's front windows. Life was far from perfect, but in that moment, it felt hopeful. As the billionaire left the diner that evening, he paused at the door, glancing back at Linda and James. He didn't need applause or headlines or a thank you speech. He had already received what mattered most, the quiet satisfaction of doing the right thing. Some debts, after all, are repaid not with money, but with heart.